Hello viewers, welcome back to another video. And as you can see in the thumbnail, we are going to try KAI CENAT's viral reading method to improve our speaking skills. I'd say I'm not a very good speaker in English, so that's why I got interested in it and I'll start reading. I did read a lot in past a few months ago, but I stopped looking due to some reasons. I got busy and all that stuff. I was reading, the last book I was reading was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It's this book. It's up until what I have read. It's a very good book. It tells about story of a boy who was chasing his dreams. That's basically it. It's about a boy who's chasing his dreams and how did he do it, what he's going through in his life, what are his thought processes. The book is about that. We read up to page number 36. Yeah, we read up to page number 36. The boy left for the, what do we call it, the place where Moors come from, to the Andalusian part of the continent. That place was, I think, Egypt. It was Egypt. Pyramids, yeah. Yeah, he was in Africa. Let's start with page number 36. That's it. This is the page number. Don't know if you can see it. This is the book. Okay, let's start. I'll just watch him, he said to himself. He knew he was stronger than his friend. Suddenly, there in the midst of all that confusion, he saw the most beautiful sword he had ever seen. The scabbard was embarrassed in silver. Whoa. I did not do this for a while and I got pretty rusty. I have gotten pretty rusty, I can feel it. Earlier I wasn't stuttering a lot, but I'm not able to speak words clearly. I'm adding different words in between. That's just totally unnecessary. I hope we improve together. Suddenly, in the midst of all that confusion, he saw the most beautiful sword he had ever seen. The scabbard was embossed in silver, and the handle was black and encrusted with precious stone. The boy promised himself that when he returned from Egypt, he would buy that sword. Ask the owner of the stall how much the sword costs, he said to his friend. Then he realized that he had been distracted for a few moments, looking at the sword. His heart squeezed as if his chest had suddenly compressed it. He was afraid to look around, because he knew what he'd find out. He continued to look at the beautiful sword for a little bit longer, until he summoned the courage to turn around. All around him was the market with people coming and going, shouting and buying, and the aroma of strange foods. But nowhere he found his new companion. The boy wanted to believe that his friend had simply become separated from him by accident. He decided to stay right there and await his return. As he waited, the priest climbed the top of a nearby tower and began his chant. Everyone in the market fell to their knees, touched their foreheads to the ground, and took up the chant. Then, like a colony of worker ants, they dismantled their stalls and left. The sun began its departure. The sun began its departure as well. The boy watched it through its trajectory. The boy watched it through its trajectory for some time until it was hidden behind the white houses surrounding the plaza. He recalled that the sun had risen that morning. He recalled that when the had risen that morning, he was on another continent, still a shepherd with 60 sheep and looking forward to meeting with a girl. The morning he had the morning That morning he had known everything that was going to happen to him as he walked through the familiar fields. But now, as the sun began to set, he was in a different country, a stranger in a strange land where he couldn't even speak the language. He was no longer a shepherd, and he had nothing, not even the money, to return and start everything over. All this happened between sunrise and sunset, the boy thought. He was feeling sorry for himself and lamenting the fact that his life could have changed so suddenly and so drastically. He was so ashamed that he wanted to cry. He had never even wept in front of his own sheep, but the marketplace was but the marketplace was empty, and he was far from home. So he wept. He wept because God was unfair, and because this was the way God repaid those who believed in their dreams. When I had my sheep, I was happy. I made those around me happy. People saw me coming and welcomed me, he thought. But now I am sad and alone. I am going to become bitter and distrustful of people because one person betrayed me. I am going to hate those who have found their treasure because I never found mine. And I am going to hold on to whatever little I have because I am too insignificant to conquer the world. He opened his pouch to see what was left of his possessions. Maybe there was a little bit left of the sandwiches he had eaten on the ship, but all he found was the heavy book, his jacket, and 2 stones the old man had given him. As he looked at the stones, he felt relieved for some reason. He had exchanged 6 sheep for 2 precious stones that had been taken from a gold breastplate. He could sell the stone and buy a return ticket. But this time I'll be smarter, the boy thought, removing them from the pouch so he could put them in his pocket. This was a port town. The only truthful thing his friend had told him was that the port towns are full of thieves. Now he understood why the owner of the bar had been so upset. He was trying to tell him not to trust that man. I am like everyone else. I see the world in terms of what I would like to see happen, not what actually does. He ran his fingers slowly over the stones, sensing their temperature and feeling their surfaces. They were his treasure. Just handling them made him feel better. They reminded him of the old man. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it, he had said. The boy was trying to understand the truth of what the old man had said. He was in the empty marketplace without a cent in his name, and with no sheep to guard through the night. The stones were proof that he had met with the king, a king who knew of the boy's past. They are called Urim and Thummim, and they can help you read omens. The boy put the stones back in the pouch and decided to do an experiment. The old man had said to ask very clear questions, and to do that, the boy had to know what he wanted. So he asked the old man's blessing was with him. So he asked if the old man's blessing was with him. He took one of the stones. It was yes. Am I going to find my treasure? He asked. He stuck his hand into the pouch and felt around for one of the stones, and he did so. As he did so, both of them pushed through a hole in the pouch and fell to the ground. The boy had never even noticed there was a hole in his pouch. He knelt down to find Urim and Thummim and put them back in the pouch. But as he saw them lying on the ground, another phrase came to his mind. Learn to recognize omens and follow them, the old king had said. An omen, the boy smiled to himself, picked the two stones and put them back in his pouch. He didn't consider mending the hole. The stone could fall through at any time they wanted. He had learned that there were certain things one shouldn't ask about, so as not to flee from one's own destiny. I promised that I would make my own decisions, he said to himself. But the stones had told him the old man was still with him, and that made him feel more confident. He looked around the empty plaza again, feeling less desperate than before. This wasn't a strange place, it was a new one. After all, what he had always wanted was just that, no new places. Even if he never got to the pyramids, he had already traveled farther than any shepherd he knew. Oh, if they knew how different things are just 2 hours by ship from where they are, he thought. Although his new world in the moment was just an empty marketplace, he had already seen it, and it was teeming with life, and he would never forget it. He remembered the sword. It hurt him a bit to think about it, but he had never seen one like it before. As he mused about these things, he realized that he had to choose between thinking of himself as a poor victim of a thief and as an adventurer in quest of this treasure. I am an adventurer looking for treasure, he said to himself. He was shaken into wakefulness by someone. He had fallen asleep in the middle of the marketplace, and life in the plaza was about to resume. Looking around, and earlier I used to read for 21 minutes, but I don't think I'll get time. I cannot make out time in the middle of the week, so I'll read as much as I can in one sitting. That's at weekends. It can be Saturday, it can be Sunday. I'll choose my days and I'll read it however much I can. So please don't get bored. If you are getting bored, then I'm really sorry that I'm not a better storyteller. That's it. He was shaken into wakefulness by someone. He had fallen asleep in the middle of the marketplace, and life in the plaza was about to resume. Looking around, he sought his sheep and then realized that he was in a new world. But instead of being saddened, he was happy. He no longer had to seek out food and water for the sheep. He could go and search for his treasure instead. He had not a cent in his pocket, but he had faith. He had decided the night before that he would be as much as an adventurer as the one he had admired in books. He walked slowly through the market. The merchants were assembling their stalls, and the boy helped a candy seller to do his. The candy seller had a smile on his face. He was happy, aware of what his life was about, and and ready to begin a day's work. His smile reminded the boy of the old man, the mysterious old king he had met. The candy merchant isn't making candy so that he can travel or marry a shopkeeper's daughter. He's doing it because it's what he wants to do. Though, thought the boy, he realized that he could do the same thing the old man had done, sense whether a person was near to or far from his destiny just by looking at them. It's easy, and yet I have never done it before. He thought. When the stall was assembled, the candy seller offered the boy the first sweet he had made up for the day. The boy thanked him, ate it, and went on his way. When he had gone only a short distance, he realized that while they were erecting the stalls, one of them had spoken Arabic and the other Spanish, and that they understood each other perfectly well. There must be a language that doesn't depend on words. The boy thought, I already had that experience with my sheep, and now it's happening with people. He was learning a lot of new things. Some of them were things that he had already experienced and weren't really new, but that he had never perceived before. And he hadn't perceived them because he had become accustomed to them. He realized, if he can learn to understand this language without words, I can learn to understand the world. Relaxed and unhurried, he resolved that he would walk through the narrow streets of Tangier. Only in that way would he be able to read the omens. He knew it would require a lot of patience, but shepherds know all about patience. Once again, he saw that the strange land was applying the same lessons he had learned with the sheep. All things are one, the old man said. The crystal merchant awoke with the day and felt the same anxiety that he felt every morning. He had been in the same place for 30 years, a shop at the top of a hilly street with few customers, where few customers passed. Now it was too late to change anything. The only thing he had ever learned to do was to buy and sell ware. Crystal glassware. There had been a time when many people knew of his shop. Arab merchants, French, English geologists, German soldiers, who were always we well well heeled. In those days it had been wonderful to be selling crystal, and he had thought how he would become rich, and he would have beautiful women at his side as he grew older. But as time passed, Tangier had changed. The nearby city of Cueta had grown faster than Tangier, and business had fallen off. Neighbors moved away, and there remained only few small shops on the hill, and no one was going to climb the hill just to browse through a few small shops. But the crystal merchant had no choice. He had lived 30 years of his life buying and selling crystal pieces, and now it was too late to do anything else. He spent the entire morning observing the infrequent comings and goings on the street. He had done this for years, and he knew the schedule of everyone who passed. But just before lunchtime, the boy stopped in front of the shop. He was dressed normally, but the practiced eyes of the crystal merchant could see that the boy had no money to spend. Nevertheless, the merchant decided to delay his lunch for a few minutes until the boy moved on. A card hanging on the doorway announced that several languages were spoken in the shop. The boy saw the man appear behind the counter. I can clean up those glasses. I can clean up those glasses in the window if you want, said the boy. The way they look now, nobody is going to want to buy them. The man looked at him without responding. In exchange, you could give me something to eat. The man still said nothing. The boy sensed that he was going to have to make a decision. In his pouch, he had his jacket. He certainly wasn't going to need it in the desert. Taking the jacket out, he began to clean the glasses. In half an hour, he had cleaned all the glasses in the window. And he was going to do so. Two customers had already Two customers had entered the shop and bought some crystal. When he had completed the cleaning, he asked the man for something to eat. "Let's go and have some lunch," said the crystal merchant. He put a sign on the door that they went to a small cafe nearby. As they sat down at the only table in the place, the crystal merchant laughed. "You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to do any cleaning," he said. "The Quran requires me to feed a hungry person." "Well then, why did you let me do it?" the boy asked. "Because the crystals were dirty. Because the crystal was dirty, and both you and I needed to cleanse our minds of negative thoughts." When they had eaten, the merchant turned to the boy and said, "I would like you to work in my shop. Two customers came in today while you were working, and that's a good omen. People talk a lot about omens," thought the shepherd, "but they really don't know what they are saying." Just as I hadn't realized that for so many years I had been speaking a language without words to my sheep. "Do you want to work for me?" the merchant asked. "I can work for the rest of today," the boy answered. "I will work all night until dawn, and I'll clean every piece of crystal in your shop. In return, I need money to get to Egypt tomorrow." The merchant laughed. "Even if you cleaned my crystal for an entire year, even if you earned a good commission selling every piece, you would still have to borrow money to get to Egypt. There are thousands of kilometers of desert between here and there." There was a moment of silence so profound that it seemed the city was asleep. No sound from the bazaars, no arguments among the merchants, no men climbing the towers to, to the towers to chant, no hope, no adventure, no old kings or destinies, no treasure and no pyramids. It was as if the world had fallen silent because the boy's soul had. He sat there, staring blankly through the door of the cafe, wishing that he had died, and that everything would end forever at that moment. The merchant looked anxiously at the boy. All the joy he had seen that morning had suddenly disappeared. "I can give you the money. You need to get back to your country, my son." "I can give you the money. You need to get back to your get back give you the money. You need to get back to your country, my son," said the crystal merchant. "Give you the money. You need to get back to your country, my son," said the crystal merchant. The boy said nothing. He got up, adjusted his clothes, and picked up his pouch. I'll work for you," he said. And after another long silence, he added, "I need money to buy some sheep." So part 1 is finished. We are on part 2. Let me see how much have I read and whether the recording has stopped or not. No, it hasn't stopped. It's been 24 minutes. Okay, let's continue. The boy had been working for the crystal merchant for almost a month, and he could see that there wasn't exactly the kind of it wasn't exactly the kind of job that would make him happy. The merchant spent the entire day mumbling behind the counter, telling the boy to be careful with the pieces and not to break anything. But he stayed with the job because the merchant, although he was an old grouch, treated him fairly. The boy received a good commission for each piece he sold, and he had able already been able to put some money aside. The morning he had done some calculating. If he continued to work every day as he had been, he would need a whole year to be able to buy some sheep. I'd like to build a display case for the crystal, the boy said to the merchant. We could place it outside and attract those people who pass at the bottom of the hill. I've never had one before, the merchant answered. People will pass by and bump into it, and the pieces will be broken. Well, when I took my sheep through the fields, some of them might have died if we had come upon a snake, but that's the way life is with sheep and with shepherds. The merchant turned to a customer who wanted three crystal glasses. He was selling better than ever, as if time had turned back to the old days when the street had been one of Tangier's major attractions. Business has really improved, he said to the boy after the customer had left. I'm doing much better, and soon you'll be able to return to your sheep. Why ask more out of life? Because we have to respond to omens, the boy said almost without meaning to. Then he regretted what he had said, because the merchant had never met the king. It's called the principle of favorability. Beginner's luck. Because life wants you to achieve your destiny, the old king had said. The merchant understood what the boy had said. The boy's very presence in the shop was an omen, and as time passed and money was pouring into the cash drawer, had no regrets about having hired the boy. He had no regrets about having hired the boy. The boy was being paid more money than he deserved because the merchant, thinking that sales wouldn't amount to much, he had offered the boy a high commission rate. He had assumed he would soon return to his sheep. Why did you want to get to the pyramids? He asked. To get away from the business of the display. Because I have always heard of them, the boy answered, saying nothing about his dream. The treasure was now nothing but a painful memory he tried to avoid thinking about. I don't know anyone around here who would want to cross the desert just to see the pyramids, said the merchant. They are just a pile of stones. You could build one in your backyard. You have never had dreams of travel? Said the boy, turning to wait on a customer who had entered the shop. 2 days later, the merchant spoke to the boy about the display. I don't much like change, he said. You and I aren't like Hassan, the rich merchant. If he makes a buying mistake, it doesn't affect him much, but we have to live with our mistakes. That's true, and that's true enough. The boy thought ruefully. Why did you think we should have the display? I want to get back to my sheep faster. We have to take advantage when luck is on our side, and do as much as do as much to help it as it's doing to help us. It's called the principle of favorability of beginner's luck. Okay, that's a very good line. We have to take advantage when luck is on our side and do as much to help it as it's doing to help us. It's called the principle of favorability of beginner's luck. The merchant was silent for a few moments. Then he said, "The Prophet gave us the Quran and left us just five obligations to satisfy during our lives. The most important is to believe only in one true God. The others are to pray 5 times a day, fast during Ramadan, and be charitable to the poor." He stopped there, his eyes filled with tears as he spoke of the Prophet. He was a devout man, and even with all his impatience, he wanted to live his life in accordance with the Muslim law. "What's the fifth obligation?" the boy asked. "2 days ago you said that I had never dreamed of travel," the merchant answered. "The fifth obligation of every Muslim is a pilgrimage. We are obliged at least once in our life to visit the holy city of Mecca. Mecca. Mecca is a lot farther away than the pyramids. When I was young, all I wanted to do was put together enough money to start the shop. I thought that someday I'd be rich and I could go to Mecca. I began to make some money, but I could never bring myself to leave someone in charge of the shop. The crystals are delicate things. At the same time, people were passing my shop all the time, heading for Mecca. Some of them were rich pilgrims, traveling in caravans with servants and camels, but most of the people making the pilgrimage were poorer than I, and who went there were happy at having done so. They placed their symbols of their pilgrimage on the doors of their houses. One of them, a cobbler who made his living mending books, said that he had travelled for almost a year through the desert, but that he got more tired when he had to walk through the streets of Tangier buying his leather. Cobbler. He had travelled for almost a year through the desert, but that he got more tired when he had to walk through the street of Tangier buying his leather. "Well, why don't you go to Mecca now?" asked the boy. "Because it's the thought of Mecca that's keep me alive. That's what helped me face these days that are all the same. These mute crystals on the shelf, and lunch and dinner at the same horrible cafe. I'm afraid that if my dreams are realized, I'll have no reason to go on living." "Dream about your sheep and the pyramids, but you are different from me because you want to realize your dreams. I just want to dream about Mecca. I've already imagined 1,000 times crossing the desert, arriving at the plaza of the sacred stone. The 7 times I walk around it before allowing myself to touch it. I've already imagined the people who would be at my side and those in front of me, and the conversations and prayers we would share. But I am afraid that it would all be a disappointment, so I prefer just to dream about it." That day the merchant gave the boy permission to build the display. Not everyone can see his dream come true in the same way. 2 more months passed, and the shelf brought many customers to the crystal shop. The boy estimated that if he worked for 6 more months, he could return to Spain and buy 60 sheep and yet another 60 in less than a year. He would have doubled his flock and he would be able to do business with the Arabs because he was now able to speak their strange language. Since that morning, in the marketplace, he had never again made use of Urim and Thummim, because Egypt was now just as just as distant a dream for him as was Mecca for the merchant. Anyway, the boy had become happy in his work and thought all the time about the day he would disembark at Tarifa as a winner. You must always know that what it is you want, the old king had said. The boy knew and was now working towards it. Maybe it was his treasure to have wound up in a strange land, met up with a thief, and doubled the size of his flock without spending a cent. He was profound of himself. He learned some important things like how to deal in crystal, and about language without words, and about omens. One afternoon he had seen a man at the top of the hill complaining that it was impossible to find a decent place to get something to drink. After such a climb, the boy, accustomed to recognize omens, spoke to the merchant. Let's sell tea to the people who climb the hill. Lots of places sell tea around here, the merchant said. But we could sell tea in crystal glasses. The people will enjoy the tea and want to buy the glasses. I have been told that beauty is a great seducer of men. The merchant didn't respond, but that afternoon, after saying his prayers and closing the shop, he invited the boy to sit with him and share his hookah, that strange pipe used by Arabs. What it is you are looking for? Asked the old merchant. I've already told you, I need to buy my sheep back, so I have to earn the money to do so. The merchant put some new coals in the hookah and inhaled deeply. I've had this shop for 30 years. I know good crystals from bad, and everything else there is to know about crystals. I know its dimensions and how it behaves. If we serve tea in crystal, the shop is going to expand, and then I'll have to change my way of life. Well, isn't that good? I'm already used to the way things are. Before you came, I was thinking about how much time I had wasted in the same place while my friends had moved on and either went bankrupt or did better than they had before. It made me very depressed. Now I can see that it hasn't been too bad. The shop is not exactly the size I always wanted it to be. I don't want to change anything because I don't know how to deal with change. I'm used to the way I am. The boy didn't know what to say. The old man continued, you have been a real blessing to me. Today I understand something I didn't see before. Every blessing ignored becomes a curse. I don't want anything in life, but you are forcing me to look at wealth and at horizons I have never known. Now that I have seen them, and now that I see how immense my possibilities are, I'm going to feel worse than I did before you arrived, because I know things I should be able to accomplish and I don't want to do so. It's good I refrained from saying anything to the baker in Tarifa, thought the boy to himself. They went on smoking the pipe for a while as the sun began to set. They were conversing in Arabic, and the boy was proud of himself being able to do so. There had been a time when he had thought that his sheep could teach him everything he needed to know about the world, but they could never have taught him Arabic. There was probably other things in the world that sheep can teach me. Though the boy thought the boy as he regarded the old merchant. All they ever wanted, all they ever do really is look for food and water, and maybe it wasn't that they were teaching me, but that I was learning from them. Maktub, the merchant said finally, what does it mean? You would have to learn, you would have You would have to have been born an Arab to understand, he answered. But in your language it would be something like it is written. And as he smothered the coals in the hookah, he told the boy that he could begin to sell tea in the crystal glasses. Sometimes there is just no way to hold back the river. The men climbed the hill, and they were tired when they reached the top. But there they saw a crystal shop that offered refreshing mint tea. They went to drink the tea when which was served in beautiful crystal glasses. My wife never thought of this, said one, and he bought some crystals. He was entertaining guests that night, and the guest would be impressed by the beauty of glassware. The other man remarked that the tea was always more delicious when it was served in crystal because the aroma was retained. The third said that it was a tradition in the Orient to use crystal glasses for tea because it had magical powers. Before long, the news spread. A great many people began to climb the hill to see the shop that was doing something new in a trade that was so old. Other shops were opened that served tea in crystal, but they weren't at the top of a hill, and they had little business. Eventually the merchant had to hire two more employees. He began to import enormous quantities of tea along with his crystals, and his shop was sought out by men and women with a thirst for things new. And in that way the months passed. The boy awoke before dawn. Okay, let's just stop here. So up until what I have read, I can feel that things are going pretty good for the old man, the merchant, and the boy because their business is growing, it's getting better, they are earning more customers, more money, and therefore I think it's heading in a better direction than it was before. Earlier, both of them had no hope, and now they are at a better place. We read up to page number 57. That's it for today. I think I'll read tomorrow again if time allows me. Hopefully, it does. Okay, that's it for today, guys. I'll see you in the next feed. Until then, goodbye and go find your purpose because it's very important.